This is a Fox News alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. ISIS terrorists, or someone who sympathizes with them, are showing tonight just how vulnerable the U.S. government can be to cyber terrorism. Hackers seized control of the U.S. Central Command's Twitter and YouTube accounts today, and that kind of ability could endanger a lot more than selfies, vines, and memes. National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin has the latest tonight from the Pentagon.
The cyber attack hit the CentCom Twitter account and YouTube page at virtually the same time the president was making planned remarks about the need for better cybersecurity.
This is a direct threat to the economic security of American families, and we've got to stop it. If we're going to be connected, then we need to be protected.
As the president spoke, the official Twitter account for U.S. Central Command, which oversees the war in Syria and Iraq, had a banner that said, "I love ISIS," proclaiming a cyber caliphate, showing photos that looked as though they had been taken from military web cameras. "ISIS is already here," the hackers wrote. "We are in your PCs in each military base." A senior defense official confirmed their accounts had been compromised. Quote, "We are taking appropriate measures to address the matter." The official CentCom YouTube site, also hacked, began playing ISIS propaganda videos with titles such as "O Soldiers of Truth, Go Forth," with fiery images of ISIS fighters. Just one day earlier, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Martin Dempsey, warned about the cyber threat in an interview on Fox News Sunday.
What have you learned about cyber threats from the North Korea hacking of Sony Pictures? How vulnerable are we to a cyber Pearl Harbor?
Cyber can be incredibly destructive. It can be disruptive, it can disrupt, and it can destroy. You know, we have, in every domain, Chris, we generally enjoy a significant military advantage. But we have peer competitors in cyber.
The head of the NSA and U.S. Cyber Command, Admiral Mike Rogers, in a Fox Business Network exclusive last week, expressed his concern as well.
The ability to use cyber as a tool to achieve specific effects is more than just a nation-state phenomenon. I pay great attention to, well, do we start to see some of these terrorist organizations move along the same lines?
The alleged ISIS cyber hack revealed the personal details of U.S. Army commanders, including personal emails, partial Social Security numbers, and phone numbers. Some of those numbers seemed outdated. A CentCom spokesman said there did not appear to be a classified breach.
Just a note of caution to folks as they're covering this story. There's a pretty significant difference between what is a large data breach and the hacking of a Twitter account.
In a statement moments ago, CentCom said the attack did not breach any military networks. Defense sources say it resembles a previous attack on a newspaper in Albuquerque. The FBI is now investigating. Brett.
Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you. More than 1 million people, including more than 40 world leaders, rallied in Paris Sunday to denounce the kind of Islamic terrorism that left 17 people dead last week in France. The leaders of Britain, Germany, Israel, Spain, even Ukraine were there. President Obama was not. In fact, the highest-ranking American on hand was the U.S. ambassador to France. And that has many people unnerved tonight. We have Fox team coverage. James Rosen here in the Bureau with how disaffected Muslims control portions of France with virtually no interference. Rick Leventhal in Paris, where French police say up to 6 terror cell members may still be at large. But we begin with Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry and worries about whether President Obama is taking Islamic terrorism seriously. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. Josh Earnest today cited security as one possible reason why the president did not go. And while a Secret Service official acknowledges it would have been challenging, the agency says they were never even asked about a possible trip to France. At a ceremony honoring the NBA champion San Antonio Spurs, President Obama quipped he thought about skipping it.
I was considering having the vice president cover these remarks so I could stay fresh for State of the Union.
An awkward joke coming the same day that even newspapers normally friendly to the president blasted him for skipping the massive rally of solidarity against terrorists in Paris, which drew dozens of world leaders, while the absence sparked scorn for the president from critics like retired Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters.
Make no mistake, passivity in the face of terror is complicity.
Another problem of optics for a president who played golf last summer after the beheading of an American journalist, and last week let his motorcade drive past the VA hospital where veterans died. Today, spokesman Josh Earnest made a rare admission at the White House podium that a mistake was made.
And I think it's fair to say that we should have sent someone with a higher profile to be there.
Hours earlier, Secretary of State John Kerry, traveling in India, tried to minimize it.
And I really think, this is sort of quibbling a little bit in the sense that our Assistant Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, was there and marched. Our ambassador was there and marched. Many people from the embassy were there and marched.
While U.S. Ambassador Jane Hartley, who was nominated to her post after raising $500,000 for the president's re-election, was in Paris, Kerry was wrong. Victoria Nuland was not in Paris, though she did attend a rally for France that happened Sunday just blocks from the White House.
We haven't gotten an accounting of what the president did Sunday.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to the president about what he did yesterday.
I mean, you obviously prepared for this, and you've said many times, the most transparent administration. What was the president doing?
And I guess I prepared for a lot of questions today, but I did not prepare for a question based on what the president was actually doing yesterday.
Okay.
Ernest said he was also not aware of the details of the schedule of Attorney General Eric Holder, who was in Paris this weekend for counter-terror meetings, but missed the rally because aides say he needed to be back in Washington Sunday afternoon. While in Paris, Holder did appear on 4 Sunday talk shows and ducked questions about why the administration is not joining the French Prime Minister in saying his country is at war with Islamic extremism.
Paris, Australia, Canada, isn't a thread through them that it's Islamic extremism?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly all the examples that you cite are examples of individuals who have cited Islam as they've carried out acts of violence.
That was about the White House announcement. They're having a summit here next month on combating violent extremism. When asked why not call it Islamic extremism, Josh Earnest said they're battling other forms of extremism as well, Brett.
Ed Henry live on the North Lawn. Ed, thank you. As French authorities hunt for accomplices in last week's terror spree, they are also concentrating on preventing more attacks. Senior correspondent Rick Leventhal is live tonight in Paris. Hi, Rick.
Brett, French police say as many as 6 members of a terror cell involved in last week's attacks remain on the loose, including a man seen driving a Mini Cooper car that was registered to the shooter at that kosher grocery store. And they say this manhunt is urgent because the threat is real. Paris remains on high alert for more possible attacks.
An unprecedented show of force by French authorities on home soil, dispatching 10,000 soldiers and several thousand police officers to add a layer of security at sensitive sites, primarily synagogues and the 700 Jewish schools across the country, home to Europe's largest Jewish population. Officials say the precautions are necessary because one of the terrorists, Ahmedi Koulibaly, targeted Jews and likely had accomplices. He left behind a video edited by someone after his death calling for more attacks. New footage released by French police shows some of the intense moments and aftermath of Friday's twin sieges, when surviving hostages were rescued from the kosher market where 4 others were killed along with the gunman. And the raid at the printing plant northeast of Paris, where the Kouachi brothers, who carried out the slaughter at the Charlie Hebdo newspaper, were killed after a standoff lasting several hours. And Turkish authorities released images captured at the Istanbul airport January 2nd, lending weight to the theory France's most wanted woman may now be in Syria. Hayat Boumediene, the common-law wife of the kosher grocery shooter, flew with another man into Turkey last week, days before the terror attacks, then traveled to a town near the Syrian border where her trail went cold. Sunday's demonstration, the largest in French history, was dedicated to all the victims of last week's terror attacks. Up to 4 million people took part in rallies across the country, an estimated 1.5 million in Paris's city center, packing the streets, avenues, and squares, chanting, "I am Charlie," and "Thank you, police," an expression of unity and solidarity against terror.
Tonight, in another show of resilience and independence, the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo released the cover of this week's special edition. It features a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad holding a sign that says, "Je suis Charlie," with the caption, "All is forgiven." Remember, the terrorists say it was another cartoon of Muhammad that inspired them to attack the newspaper offices last week, killing 12. Brett.
Rick Leventhal live just after midnight in Paris. Rick, thank you. There are sections of France where non-Muslims are afraid to tread or are prohibited altogether from entering. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen tells us tonight the no-go zones are providing extremists with easy access to new recruits.
Around the outer limits of Paris and across Greater France, home to Europe's largest Muslim population, the French government over the last 2 decades has blocked out some 750 areas, known officially as sensitive urban zones, blighted areas intended to receive economic aid, but known informally as no-go zones, where central state authority is diminished, sometimes to the point of zero.
They're essentially areas where immigrants are completely separated from the host country, and where in some cases, Islamic Sharia law is the law of those particular areas. We see a continued problem with car burnings in France, with the inability of French police to get into these zones because it's dangerous for non-Muslim police to enter these areas and to not be pelted with rocks.
In these large enclaves of disaffected foreign-born Muslims, unemployment rates can run as high as 50%. Black market economies thrive, and radical Islam finds a fertile breeding ground.
In a 10-minute cab ride from the Eiffel Tower, you can be walking through streets that feel like Baghdad. You see young men wearing Osama bin Laden t-shirts. In a hookah shop, I saw a speech by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who was leading an insurgency against American troops in Iraq at the time. And it seemed very mainstream and very accepted. This is the efforts of Islamists like the Muslim Brotherhood or Al-Qaeda to recruit off the streets of the no-go zones.
Over the last 2 years, French President Francois Hollande has stepped up policing in 15 so-called security zones, some overlapping with the no-go zones, and achieved limited success in re-establishing central authority.
Western civilization has to start defending itself, its values, its culture, and its laws. And if you wind up with pockets where those laws don't apply, we shouldn't be surprised that we see things like this happen.
Other European countries are also reported to have no-go zones, including Belgium, England, Germany, Italy, and Sweden. Brett.
James, thank you. Up next, Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney set for a possible collision course in 2016. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 27 in Charlottesville, where the University of Virginia has reinstated the fraternity at the center of allegations of a culture of sexual violence at that school. Police say they were unable to confirm a story in Rolling Stone magazine describing a gang rape at Phi Kappa Psi. WSVN in Miami with completion of the release of 53 political prisoners from Cuba. It is part of President Obama's new policy to restore relations with the communist nation. And this is a live look at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. From Fox 4, our affiliate out there, the big story there tonight, the first ever major college football playoff championship game. Oregon takes on Ohio State. Fox 4 says the game will bring in $300 million to the local economy there. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.